Hi, this is Chef Gordon Rader from Indian Hills Community College, and today we're talking a little bit about wine basics, wine 101 if you will. So anytime I prepare for a trip, one of the first things I want to have on hand is a road map, and I think the same applies to our journey towards wine education. There are a lot of great publications and books out there available at your local bookseller. Literally thousands of it's such a popular subject right now. I mean, the market's actually glutted with books. The internet is another great resource for valuable wine information. A lot of really fantastic wine aficionados have taken the time to break it down into its component parts and share freely with the rest of us their journey that they've taken, the food and wine pairings that they've come up with, and some basic information that's going to benefit all of us. So it certainly is a good idea to do a little Google search for basic wine structure or basic wine ideas or basic wine period. Wine and food pairings is another way to go. One of my favorite publications, the textbook that we use in our wine classes, is called About Wine by J. Patrick Henderson and Deli Rex. That's a Thompson Del Mar Learning Skills tool. And they have done a really fantastic job on taking a very difficult subject and breaking it down into its component parts. Wine history, wine varietals, wine regions, wine marketing, cellar structure, in case that's a hobby that you want to get into. Of course, restaurants, a lot of them have invested in a wine cellar system. And so, one of the first things that we want to do is have our wine guide with us. And then one of the first subjects that come up in that particular book that I'm talking about today are Old World versus New World wines. Old World wines are based on regions. France, for example, is an Old World wine producer. And I don't know whether you can see this well, but this map has divided the map of France into wine regions. Burgundy, Bordeaux, the Loire Valley, Champagne, Beaujolais. These are just some of the wine regions of France. And you won't really know what grapes are in the wine until you know about what grapes are grown in that particular region of France. Whereas on the label in New World wines, as in America, or Chile, or Argentina, or Australia, or New Zealand, you'll find the grape varietal on the bottle. So a Chardonnay is a Chardonnay, is a Cabernet Sauvignon is a Cabernet Sauvignon. So that makes it a little bit easier. So I think it's great to work from New World wines back into the Old World wines. Another difference between the two: Old World wines have more of a sophisticated, minerally taste to them, not as fruit forward, whereas it's just the opposite in New World wines. You get a lot more fruit. And so once again, drinking one over another doesn't make you better than anybody else. I think what it does is, we always go back to what you like, what you feel drawn to at the moment. Physiologically, your taste changes every 7 years. So I think it's important to remember the things you like when you were a kid. You're probably not going to embrace now. You probably want stronger flavors, stronger tastes, and that's why, at 17, it wasn't blue cheese or Merlot or Cabernet Sauvignon, and now it is. So, two of my favorite white wines, and I think it's always great to start with two basics and work our way into some more. This is a Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand, so obviously a New World wine. This label at the top is not a lot less complicated than some of the Old World wines. The actual manufacturer estate name, the name of the grape, Sauvignon Blanc, which is also called a Fumé Blanc, the vintage year, 2007, and that's the year that the grapes were harvested, and then the region of New Zealand, Marlborough. And this is a great, this has got a screw cap on it. People see it and they think, well, maybe that's a cheap wine. It's not very good. It's a very, very good Sauvignon Blanc. Well, Chef, what is a Sauvignon Blanc? I'm not familiar with it. What does it go with? This is, once again, also known as Fumé Blanc, comes from the Sancerre and the Puy-Fumé regions of France, and that's in the Loire Valley and the Bordeaux region. And the wine is very tart, citric, herbaceous. Herbaceous is the key word, with some lemon, citrus tones to it. Grassy, when I talk about herbaceous, grassy, hay, straw. Those are the ways to describe it with the aromas, and then the taste is tart and acidic. There's a lot of acidity going on there, which is a great way to cleanse your palate between bites of food. It goes really well with oysters, and I think fresh oysters on the half shell is a fantastic combination. Any seafood, lobster, shrimp, scallops, any fish in particular as well. White fish in particular, I think that it really hones in on the flavor and the delicacy of the white fish. You know, lemon goes well with sole, right? So this wine is going to go super with that particular product. And this is a great wine to maybe pick up a bottle and try, and maybe pick up some oysters, maybe pick up a lobster. You know, and this gives you an excuse to cook too, which is always something that I like to see happen. Pinot Grigio, now we're leaving New Zealand and going to Italy. And Pinot Grigio in France is a Pinot Gris grape, called Pinot Grigio in Italy, obviously. This is a 2007 vintage year. Mezzacarona is the estate. And this is very similar to the Sauvignon Blanc, but there's some distinctions to it. There's a lot more lemon citrus to this. It's still tart and acidic, but more of a lemony, citrusy taste to it, and it goes really well with, in this particular case, I like it with chicken. There's some cream sauces that it goes well with. I prefer Chardonnays, but that's another conversation. They can go with some spicy foods as well, a spicy chile or pepper sauce. So it could not only go with some Italian foods like a diavolo, but it could go with some Mexican foods as well. So, you know, these are two wines. Take the time, if you'll start with just these two, do a web search, for example. That's a great way to start. Look up and find out what they're about, where they're from, get some history behind them, and what do they pair with. And then actually sit down and do the homework yourself. Maybe you can go to the restaurant, you've got some extra cash in your pocket, you can order a bottle of wine or thing. What's great, restaurants are selling wine by the glass now. So there's a lot of opportunities for wine education. And look at your local community colleges. We teach a lot of continuing education or adult education classes on wine. I think that's a great way to start. See if there's any wineries in your area. I know in Iowa we have a lot of wineries, a lot of sweet wines, but they're importing some grapes from California and doing some experimentation with some really nice dry wines, some reds and some whites that I enjoy. So there's a lot of opportunity to educate yourself on the subject now and enjoy a glass with your family and friends. I think it creates a great sense of camaraderie, and hopefully you spend a little extra time at the table. So I appreciate the time that you spent with me today, and I hope this was educational for you.